Welcome everyone. As you've probably noticed, demon stacks have been capped at 10, but we just didn't need the damage anymore. We also move very fast with ball lightning, which helps travelling around the map, getting over obstacles. I have made a few changes to the gear and tree, but I just wanted to speak about the invocation gems first. There's 3 of them, and they're all different, and we can make use of them more effectively in different ways. So the first one is Elemental Invocation. Now this must be cast ourselves. We have the button for it at the bottom. Unless we use Ritual Cadence, which is a keystone just up here, then we must cast it ourselves. Honestly, I don't think this is worth it. The 2-second cooldown is just too long, considering how fast we can trigger it otherwise. So back to EI, we can see the maximum energy is 500. We'll get another 100 for quality, so that's 600 altogether. This is different to the other gems, because the maximum energy is fixed at 600. Cast on ailments, cast on critical, there's 10 maximum energy per 0.1 second of cast time. And this is different for every spell. So one of the reasons that makes the maximum energy good for us is that it doesn't have this limit based on the spell. If we generate energy and we happen to generate 600 energy in one go, then we'll be able to store all 600 energy and none of it will be wasted. If we have a spell in here that has a cast time of 0.8, then that's going to be 80 energy required. So if we just generate 200 energy, then over 100 energy gets wasted because we can't store it. That's the reason for putting in so many gems, because by doing this, we increase the maximum energy. Also works like this with Spellslinger, except instead of hitting enemies, we just have to cast spells ourselves. We do this with Lightning Warp. So the energy cost for each spell, like we've just said, if we take the cast time on the skill and multiply that number by 100, we don't go into the skill and we do not look at the cast time here. This is not what it means. When it says base cast time, it means the cast time on the skill sheet. There's also something with Comet, where normally the cast time of 1 would be 100 energy. It says plus 1 second to total cast time. There's also a modifier just here that says modifiers to total use time are treated as though they would double the value. So that's saying if the plus 1 second from Comet is adding 1, it's now adding 2 because it's being doubled. That's going to be 300 energy altogether to cast 1 Comet. That's why you'll notice if you use EI with Comets in, you'll only ever get 2 charges because they're 300 each and you can store 600. If you don't have the quality, then obviously you'll only be able to store 1 charge. So like we've said, if we come over to the critical and ailment gems, the maximum energy is going to be based on the total of all the gems that are inside of it. So for Frost Darts, 0.8 times 4, it's going to be 3.2 or 320 energy. So the reason we're so bothered about energy is because we have a lot of energy gain. When we look in our Lightning Warp sheet, don't be fooled by the damage numbers themselves. Obviously, the 78,000 tooltip DPS is very strange. How we can also have just 17,000 on Arc, or 2,500 on Frost Dart's projectile. Not much more on the Ice Chunk or Explosion. But honestly, these numbers are so deceptive. Obviously, we can do over 10-15 million damage in just a second, so I don't know where this number's coming from or how they're doing that behind the scenes. Obviously, it will all work out if you take the numbers and multiply every formula, but that's what this is supposed to do, and it doesn't. But either way, the cold damage and lightning damage, we are getting a lot of that from the Atalui gem. So it's giving us gain as extra physical, but we're converting that into cold with Embitter. So on our damage sheet, if we take Embitter off, all of the cold goes away. So by putting Embitter on, this is letting us freeze enemies so we can get more energy. The lightning damage that we have will let us shock enemies. As we see, lightning damage from hits contributes to the chance to shock. So all lightning damage will contribute to that. And then we also have the Bringer of Flame Ascendancy, which lets all damage ignite with a 60% critical chance. Cast on critical activates fairly often, but it also does reduce damage, 20% less damage. So we don't like to use that, or at least not for our main skill. This, I tend to think of it more of a mapping slot. So any spells that I want to use for map with a big AoE, we'll put in here. The cast on ailments, this is definitely for bossing because it's triggering very quickly. The trigger raise is very quick, especially when all damage ignites. A decent chunk is shocking, and most of it is building up a freeze. This triggers like crazy, and it's the same for the elemental invocation, but we have to manually cast and press the button for that. There is a point, so when we are placing gems inside of the invocation, we want to make sure that the order is correct. So for example here, I've just put in the lightning warp and then the ball lightning. But the gems are going to activate from the left side to the right. Now it doesn't matter which socket they're in, it's just going to go from left to right. So when this activates, we're going to get a lightning warp, and then we're going to get a ball lightning. But this is not going to work, because the lightning warp needs a ball lightning to activate. So what we have to do is put the ball lightning first, so that when the trigger gem activates, the ball lightning will go off, and then the lightning warp will have an entity to teleport to. If we do it this way around, with the warp first, it will just fizzle out and the ball will drift off. So the order is really important, and it can also be important for remnants and the infusions. So if I'll get another gem. Let's say we have Spark and Frost Darts that both want cold infusion. It says it just there. So the order of the gem, as you might have already guessed, is going to dictate which one of these spells gets the last cold remnant. If we go from left to right, then we can prioritize Spark having the last cold remnant, or at least always getting one, or most of the time getting one. The spells further along to the right are not going to get as many. Like we said with the ball and lightning, the ball lightning and lightning warp, if you cast a spell like lightning warp on its own, it won't do anything unless there's an enemy that can be cooled. But aside from that, it won't do anything, but it will still cost life. So this can be a really good way to increase your life regeneration with Tech Rod, because the more we spend, the more we recover. There are also a couple of other gems that we can use. So if you want to generate more remnants, Living Bomb is really good. If we use the overabundance support, it makes it a lot smoother to apply them. The flow is a lot more steady. And also harmonic remnants. This is going to give us a 20% chance to generate additional remnants. And I think this will be a different, or it can be a different type to what's created. If we look on the skill tree, we have a 10% chance when collecting elemental infusion to gain an additional infusion of the same type. So with the harmonic remnants, these can stack, and we can actually, if we're lucky, have 4 remnants spawn per one that we spawn ourselves. So we also have a couple of other spells that we can use, like Essence Drain, Detonate Dead. They are usable. I was just trying the Essence Drain, so at the minute my tree does have some chaos skills in it. But normally this is what we'd have, and this is what we use for most of the spells, except for Frostbolt, because that can't consume anything. So there is also the party play option. Now in the last version of the build I was recommending Alpha's Howl, and I still think this is a great option. It gives us tons of spirit, we get a nice corruption on it, some nice resistance as well. And I think this is a more effective option all around. This new setup with the Sanguimancer helmet is mainly to save skill points. So you can see there's a lot that we're not spending. And all of those skill points have been moved over here to get in some extra projectiles, some energy, and some speed for projectiles as well. And then we're picking up some of the recovery that we lost from Hail Heart, because we're not getting that. So From Nothing's been moved up to Zealot's Oath. This is a nice way to save the points as well. I think it's about 5 points we save. So not massive, but it's definitely something that helps. We also have the Arcane Surge and Sanguimantic Rituals. Now, I know there's been a bit of discussion about this, and some people don't really think it's good to use, which, you know, it does cost a lot of skill points. The reason I've kept this is because the way the tree has gone, we are very starved for life regeneration. The only place we have it is here. We did have access to it down here, but we moved away from blood magic. And we did have quite a lot here, but we've moved the From Nothing. So we're really limited for life regen. And this actually gives us 20% increased life regen. The 1% per second doesn't really matter, but the more life regeneration does. So with Arcane Surge, it's 20% more life regen. We increase that obviously with more effect, but it's also the cast speed that we get. And I think this is what's often underappreciated, because we can also scale this with the effect of Arcane Surge. So especially against bosses when we need a big burst of healing to cast all the extra spells we're triggering, this is amazing. So at least for me, I'll still be keeping Arcane Surge, and I'll still be recommending it, because we are fighting 99% of the time, and against bosses it's really good. It's like we get the extra cast speed up here as well, Obviously that's just following the trend. If I had a few extra skill points, I'd get those two down there. But most of it is just getting a bit of energy shield. Also a bit of stun and ailment threshold. So with Lightning Warp, we are in the thick of it. We're right in the middle of the action. So this really helps us not to be frozen or stunned. Even though we can survive with a high regen from Tech Rod, the Sacrifice of Blood. Which I will also mention, just if this is the first video you've been watching. This Tech Rod Jewel is the most important piece of the build. It's what allows us to recover life so quickly, what allows us to spend all of that life for spells. The only other recommended piece is the Mask of the Sanguimancer. Now it's not required, you can just pass down here and get it with skill points. You can get Abyssal or quite a few different helmets. This is just what I've ended up with now. I do think it's better when you've got a bit more investment to optimize your setup. Even with some pieces I've still got a way to go, but if we notice, I have tried to focus on the cast speed and just getting resistances with life, a bit of energy shield. That's all we've really focused on. We do have movement speed on the boots, but that is not required at all. If you didn't want movement speed, you don't have to have them. Because we use the Ball Lightning and Lightning Warp to teleport, we don't need it at all. Obviously we have to wait a bit for the life regen to ramp up, but when it does, we're off. And then we don't have to even touch the keyboard or joystick if you're on controller. We'll just teleport around. So if we return just back to the skill page, we do have a few extra skills that we put in just for the boss. So if you are fighting the boss and you want a bit of a damage increase, we use the Sigil of Power, but we get 2 charges with Overabundance and Second Wind. So we can cast 2, and then when we cast a spell inside of it, they'll light up. So we want to cast them first, and then we'll cast our curse. Obviously you have to do it a bit faster than this because you'll run out of time. But just before the boss spawns is when we'll cast the Frost Bomb. That's going to tick for a while, so it gives us a bit of chance. And if you're using any projectile spells, I'd use Flame Wall. So when you shoot through it, you're going to see an orange trail follow the projectile. And that's going to tell you that it's doing extra damage. You don't really have to use these gems for the boss. I just happen to have them just to make it faster, I guess. But with the Curse and Frost Bomb, we can reduce resistance by over 100%. So this is 107%, but it's halved. So we also get the Frost Bomb exposure, which is also halved, but can still go to a maximum of 60. So another really big multiplier to the damage is the chance to either refund half of energy spent from the skill tree and skill gem, but also the indicated echoes. So this is giving us 40% chance to consume half as much. We can also get this stat line on the amulet. So this is a desecration, but between 10 and 20%, which does get increased by caster modifier, so that's up to 24%. We also get some more trigger refund on the Heart of the Well. Along with this, we can have lightning damage is lucky and life regeneration. These 3, I think, are the best in slot for us. Ideally, this crit chance would be gainers extra, but I'm not going to complain with this one. Ideally, if you were looking for the perfect one, gainers extra is definitely more damage. So I'd like to just show us a quick map. I'll try and pick one with some things on it. Not sure what the wetlands is like. Oh, this is just to show us a little bit about what to do with the build. So when we first get in a map, we are not ready to fight. We really do need to cast a spell, but casting it on its own might not be enough. You can see that's quite slow. We need to use the life flask to make sure the recovery is fast enough that we can cast faster than we were a second ago, if that makes sense. So just basically use your life flask and you'll be able to start casting. So something that is important, I think, is how you have your buttons set up. So for me, I can just hold my left mouse button and I'll change it between the right mouse and the mouse 4. It doesn't really matter, just as long as it's comfortable for you. But the main thing is just being able to hold 2 of them, usually the Warp and Spell Slinger, and then the third one being Invocation. We'll press that maybe when there's a big pack or a rare, and we don't even have to press it, you can just forget about this if you want. But using the Spell Slinger and Warp is going to get us around the map. And eventually, once you get very familiar with the build, you don't even need to do it how I was saying. So you can actually hold Warp and Invocation and just press the Spell Slinger every couple of seconds. And as you can see, it still gets us around the map. It still clears it out. So definitely different ways to control the build. But I prefer to keep it held down and I can use it more as a moving tool. You can see already the difference in how fast we're moving. But that's how I like to use it. It gets us around really quick. It may seem very hard to actually control, but it's actually a lot easier than you might think. You can see the big pink cursor. It should be purple, but it does say pink in the settings. So, but if you just make that as big as you can, you just kind of go in that direction. So I've not had to aim specifically at any particular ball, I'm just going in a direction and just running everything over. And obviously this is going to look different depending on which spells you pick, but any of the spells work good. Like I say, the Detonate Dead, hey! The Detonate Dead and Essence Strain do work really well, but they're just not comparable to the other spells. They're definitely further behind, but they work, so if you really wanted to play them then you could, but honestly the Ball Lightnings were doing more than the Essence Strain, and the Detonate Dead's too slow. It can't keep up with us. So that's just my 2 cents on it. Yeah, as we can see, it's a great build for clearing. Obviously for bossing as well, with us being 10 stacks, that helps a lot. But yes, really fun build. Had a lot of fun with it this season. Level 96, just over halfway. So even though I was starting quite late, I was doing leveling guides when people were farming endgame, but we've managed to catch up nicely, and we've got a good build to show for it. So there are just a couple of other things I'd like to go over, and I have just a couple of clips to show for that. So it is only a couple of things that I want to show. I think this has gotten quite a lot of us this league. So basically, if you watch the life and shield, it just stops regenerating, and then when I move a certain distance away, it goes up and then stops again when I get closer. This is a ground effect from the Abyss monsters. It just completely bricks us. The only way is to step off it. I don't think we can prevent it from affecting us, we just have to literally avoid it on the ground. So thanks GTE for that. We do also have another one that is more specific to the build itself, the lightning warp. So when we go to some boss arenas, we are actually unable to cast lightning warp. So I just got the video now. Oh, I can't drag it. Okay, that's weird. Sorry about that, I had some technical difficulties. So I'll just rewind it a little bit before so we can see as I'm coming up, I'm warping fine, it's working, and then you think, oh, I just got stuck on the tree, but no, it just doesn't work. So sometimes the odd one will, which is strange, but 99% of them don't. If we go to the edge of the arena or we look inside of somewhere that's not got a floor, we are able to cast. So I'll just show us that again. Obviously there was an unfortunate death there, but this has probably killed a lot of people, just not being able to cast the spell because of a bug. So if we aim off the edge of the arena, like I'm aiming off into the sea off the cliff or something, then it seems to work. And it's like that in a lot of arenas. The one that we fight in Act 2 in the Valley of the Titan, the big guy with the dagger that slams in the platform we're on, it happens there, but if you aim off the platform, the same thing happens here. We're able to cast. So really strange bug, not very good for us at all. But this is when, obviously you can see my skills at the bottom. We've got Frost Wall. So this is what Frost Wall is for. When there are arenas like this that are bugged, and we can't cast Warp, as you can see, what we do is we cast Frost Wall instead. So we only need to get off a few warps. With the Frost Wall charges, we can kill the bosses no problem. So, roundabout way of saying be careful, but there are a few bugs that are killing us, and then there's also a few things to look out for as well. So that's going to be all for this time. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate this was a longer one than normal. I just felt like there was a lot I wanted to try and jam in and really explain and go over. So yeah, thank you again for watching. Any questions, let me know. And I'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.